Don't tell Jeanette, but I'm wearing my blue jacket, the one destined for the rubbish bin, the one with the frayed cuffs that no one can really see unless I'm sitting at a table with that person conversing over some important matter, urging that good soul to love his neighbor and buy local. And I'm fiddling with something with my pen, perhaps, and he's looking down at my hands that some say are very graceful hands and noticing the old cuffs. But there they are. David Toulis in his worn blue jacket, here to provide you with a great service, I hope. Now, speaking of service, I was speaking with a man named Isaiah Raw this morning, who Marie Mott, our wonderful Marie Mott, had on her program last week. Do tune in, by the way, tomorrow at 11 for Marie's great program, the Marie Mott Show. She had Isaiah on the program, a man who is a Reformed club member, should I say, a repentant and Reformed gang member who had a job. And it was telling her and was telling me about his work at a recycling center. But something happened, and I don't believe I'm revealing a confidence here, but he has a rough past, lives in a rough part of town. And with his job at a recycling center, which he had been on for a month, he was suddenly let go and is trying to find work. And this is the kind of story that draws me, and not just to write about, but to help this person. So I called him a couple of times this morning, asking him about his situation with Chorus Recycling. And I tried to find out about that. I said, well, Isaiah, where is this place? Where is the plant at which you worked? And he said, well, look, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going back there. I said, well, look, and then I reasoned with myself, I guess, and with him about what the best thing to do is. Here you're a man, you're just getting started in life. You're married and you've lost your car, unable to make the payments on the note. And so he yielded the car back to the car dealership, the seller of the car. I think it's Phoenix, down across the way from Mountain View Nissan and Mountain View Ford, their used car lot. And so now he's having a hard time getting around. I said, Isaiah, do you have a bike? And I immediately thought, well, I have a son's bike in my shed. It needs new tubes, and the derailleur needs a little work, perhaps. I could take that down to Owen Cyclery and probably for under $100 have it serviceable, and then he could use that, or just have that bike to get places. And I don't know if that would work for Isaiah. He said that people around him from his past, he's still in a context of his former colleagues, former enemies, and he said he doesn't like to walk in his neighborhood. He doesn't really want to be exposed there, and so he's in a bind. Why did he lose his job? Well, he says that it was through manpower. The employer, the recycling center, found something in the record that it did not like, and terminated him. So I said, well, look, Isaiah, you had a job and you were let go for, let's say, would be a wrong reason. Corporate people often are very risk averse, shy about taking risks that an individual might take. Corporations are removed. They don't have a heart and soul. By definition, the more you work in a company and the bigger it is, the less soul it has. There's no backside to kick. There's no physical entity. There's no, a corporation is an abstract. It's a legal fiction. It's called a legal person. So it can't really have empathy. It's not there for empathy. And the bigger the corporation, the more removed it is to a Christian ethic, I would say, unless, God's special providence on that business continues to exercise as it grows larger. So the closer you are to the individual, the more soul you can have. And so I said, look, Isaiah, maybe the best thing, what if I offered to meet with you and the manager? What could we arrange a meeting after my show? My show was done at 3:00. And I'm going to the city council meeting this evening by God's providence. And in that time, why don't we just go back and meet there? And he said, well, the work is very difficult. And he had some difficulties, he said, with colleagues there. I said, well, and he thought he was maybe being underpaid. I said, well, look, you don't have work now. It doesn't really matter that you were paid only $12 an hour or $10 an hour, and you think you're worth $13 an hour. Those are not obstacles to getting your employment back, right? Could we not figure out how to have this to have this manager the boss there at the recycling plant find a way to work around the official policy, right? Some kind of official policy that caused this man Isaiah Ra to be ejected. And now with his lovely wife at home, and he can't get to work. So I said, look, it seems to me, if I could just make a suggestion to you, that the first thing would be to try to make amends with Manpower's customer, the recycling center, and get your place back. He wasn't sure he wanted to do that. I said, but that would get you a check a week out, and then you could use the part of that check once you were back on the payroll to get the car back and use the car to get around and maybe look for something better, right? Maybe have other situations. So my thinking is not, I'm a journalist and I cover things, and it is thought that if I write about something as writer and blogger, the blogger with the biggest pen, right, David Toulis, that maybe good things will happen. And because I have a clear bias in what I write. Okay, I'm in a way neutral, because I always, if I'm meeting with someone who, let's say, is on the other side of an issue, I always make a point of quoting that person accurately, and to have his position reflected, even if it's not my position. It doesn't really matter. I want his viewpoint to get put out. For example, Mayor Dwayne Land in Dunlap. I had a report about a seemingly scandalous report about him being a landlord of dozens and dozens of shabby trailer homes in Sequatchie County, a slumlord, right? However, I didn't paint him that way, and though I did say that he was harassing this couple, Thomas and Carol Gaddy, to get them out of their house, condemning it as public hazard and so on, even though he was sort of the bad guy in the story. In the story I wrote about his business, right, his landlord work, I highlighted the fact that he's a landlord for poor people, right? These are shabby trailers because the tenants are poor. And so he's providing a necessary service to that market. And we need people who are landlords of poor places. We need them, right? So I can't condemn a mayor for running shabby trailer parks. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to have shabby trailer parks because they're inexpensive, right? That's a great benefit that Mayor Land is providing to people in Sequatchie County. So, my story about him, which someone else would have turned into a hit piece, I didn't do that at all. I I met some of the people. I quoted them all very favorably to Dwayne Land, right? The villain in the piece, right? And so the story, he won re-election handily. And even though my intense coverage of his abuse of Mr. and Mrs. Gaddy preceded all the stories, the story about him, I gave him a fair shot. And so that's what I do. I'm going to give people a fair shot, even if they seem to be wrong, seem to be doing something illegal. I'm going to highlight the wrongs, but also give an accurate story and not misrepresent that person. And we have in political coverage, we have in the political race. I'm thinking here of Jonathan Mason in his hit mailer against Esther Helton, the city councilwoman here in East Ridge, where our studio is, in the House race. That's taking facts and slanting them in the most vicious way possible. And here Jonathan Mason is forgetting an important purpose of running for office. The purpose of running for office is to deliver a message of what's good and what can be done to make things better, right? How do you plan to reform evils that are brought about often by state government? That should be why you run for office, because there's an evil and a wrong and an injustice somewhere in front of you, and you want to bring a solution. Many people who are running for office in that district, Joda Thongnopno, for example, he's a Democrat, and he has progressive interventionist solutions. I'm wanting to hear, does he believe in the people at all, or does he simply believe in government, right? He seems to be a very sympathetic man, a young candidate for office, and who's concerned for working people. But if you're concerned for working people, maybe, just maybe, you want to have no more government intervention solutions. Maybe you want to have more voluntary-oriented, market-oriented, and soul-bearing, and even godly, right? Even biblical solutions, which cannot possibly be, most of them, I would like to suggest, cannot possibly be getting a bill passed in the legislature. So my job is not to slam anybody. Even though in my coverage, when I cover somebody and they're doing something illegal, well, believe me, I'll tell them. Right? I told Stephen Greer, the attorney who gave a very good bill of health for Brent Lambert, the mayor of East Ridge. In other contexts, I have just hounded him for violating the ordinance of the town of Dunlap. He was the city attorney helping Dwayne Land, right, harass the Gaddies, making unconstitutional demands upon that couple. And my goal here on the David Tullis Show is to tell the story, right? Tell the story for you, the listener. And what I hope to do is really edify you, the listener, and then bring solutions. The solution partly is the story itself, right? Especially if I can tell it, if I can give my time and attention to a story, and telling that story, it opens up people's minds. And some people pray, some people do what they can to help the victims. And good things come from exposure. And that is what the press's job is. David Tullis here at 92.7 Nuga Radio. I do thank you for joining me. Just give me a couple minutes of your time. We're live on your TV. By the way, if you have a late model TV in your living room where your old aunt, you go down the street to your old aunt's house, she's kind of lonesome. Well, put her late model TV LCD screen there that you got at Walmart for $98. And it's got the YouTube channel on there. And I'll be right there. I can talk to her straightway. Here on my camera in her living room on the YouTube channel on your late model TV. We're also on Facebook. Both companies, of course, organizing themselves to oppress the free press and present themselves as biased middlemen and editors and redactors. I've had several boosts that I've proposed of stories I've done or presentations I've made here on the show that have been disapproved by Facebook. So we want to get to this question about Isaiah. So what do we need to know about Isaiah Raw, the former club member? Right? I call him a club just kind of with a wink to the police officer who thinks I'm giving the bad guys a pass. They were all in court. I think today, Judge Greenholz's court, or maybe this was yesterday, in a status hearing for their felony RICO prosecutions. They're gang members, they're club members, and the whole question about gang affiliation is something we can deal with later. But I'd say that it is a kind of stereotyping, and gang membership is highly fluid. It's highly fluid, and people can get on the register as qualified, certified gang members on the flimsiest assembly of data by the management team there in the police department that keeps track of who the gang members are. And we've been told in the past that there are hundreds of gang members, and my guess is probably there are 50 or 60 at the most. And the people who are sometimes get tagged with membership are not really. They're not really hardcore gang members. It's a highly fluid situation. People come and go, and loyalties are forged, with long connection and long involvement in small, petty crime and guns and drugs and maybe a little bit of strong arming and threats. David Tullis here. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949. So what do we do about Isaiah? I thought what I can do is I try to listen. If I'm going to meet the manager of this recycling center and try to help Isaiah get his job back, which Isaiah says, no, that's not going to help me. He is determined that not be an answer for him. What I would do, I would say, look, please, let's just figure this out. What can I do to help you? Right? What can I do? Just listening to what your problems are as the manager. I mean, you have many problems, and this detail of this one man on your staff whom you find out has some kind of crime in his past that you didn't know about or you thought you didn't know about before, and now you found out about it, and Isaiah is terminated. Well, what can we do? Well, how can I help you? Is there some kind of grace or mercy we can extend to this man so that he can get on his feet? He's trying to get on his feet, a young man, and what can we do? So that what I try to do is, I'm not just objective here. I'm in the story, and here's this reporter David Tullis, right, making an address to City Council, right. I've made address twice, I think, to Chattanooga City Council on Title 55 reform. seeking to end the prosecution of people in under Title 55, the transportation statute, people who I would suggest are not involved in transportation and who legally cannot be subjected to that title, especially if they make defense. The problem is, though, people don't know how to defend themselves from a Title 55 charge, meaning traffic charge. And many of these people who are arrested by police officers and taken to the jail, there were 4 in John Wilson's accounting of the arrests or the cycle in the past day. There are 4 who were there almost entirely for traffic charges. The number about maybe 30 people or so. I'm not remembering exactly. Maybe high 20s of people arrested. You can see their mugshots and their names in all capital letters, and the charges under which they have been put into the jail. And the name is David Toulis, 800-8949, 800-8949. What are solutions? And I think a lot of solutions can be had by a personal intervention, and that would be as against some kind of law, as against some kind of program with its requirements on private people, as against a particular officer. Now, I mentioned this particular officer part here, coming back to the question of Title 55. I've made announcement to East Ridge City Council and Chattanooga City Council and given notice. It's called transportation administrative notice. And what it does, it puts the pressure of reform squarely on the individual officer. And that is my theory, that we have reform in Chattanooga at many points, not from external force, getting a law changed, getting a new program. These are not how things are brought about. In my estimation, since I'm loco-centric, right? I'm Nougat-centric, the blogger with the biggest pen in Chattanooga. My argument is we can do things here to bring reform. And stopping the arrest and harassment of African Americans, of Spanish-speaking immigrants, and of the poor through the police apparatus under Title 55 is brought. The reform has to, since it's not going to happen with Sheriff Hammond and David Roddy. They apparently reject the notice, though they've not given any kind of rebuttal. Every passing day without rebuttal of this notice cements the fact that legally it's true, right? And so when the first lawsuit comes against the individual officer for oppression, they're going to suddenly understand that they should have changed their policy for arrest protocols and brought into the mix a new question that would let the officer, who's now has his neck on the line, a question which would allow him by policy to determine if a person in the car in front of him that he has stopped for a traffic infraction under the blue light arrest system, whether that car is a private user of the road or a commercial user who would thereby be subject to Title 55, right? Because Title 55, here at 800-8949, 800-8949, applies only to people involved in the commercial use of the road, which is to say the extraordinary for-profit, capitalistic, entrepreneurial use of the people's asset. The roads belong to the people. That's also in the law and the Constitution. And if you want to get a summary of this, just Google transportation administrative notice. It's a 20-page legal analysis. Got a lot of single-space type there. I think about 9 point. But I try to keep it short, and 20 pages covers it. There are some things I want to get in there, but it would add a page, and so I'm not adding anything to that notice. But Mayor Burke has gotten the notice. David Roddy has gotten the notice, the chief of police in Chattanooga, and Mayor Hammond. And in East Ridge, I've got to do Red Bank next. Arnold Stoltz, the city attorney, is not getting back to me on some important matters of public safety. And here, Red Bank has just killed a woman under Title 55 and the right to kill statute. So we've got. I'm sure the city attorney for Red Bank is busy with that now, right? Checking with insurers and checking to see what the city's strategy is going to be for this execution of that woman trapped in her car in a wood. The officers all getting good cover behind innumerable trees there at the end point of her flight. Arnold Stoltz, the city attorney, I need to give him notice. And then also in proximity of Saudi Daisy, my hometown where I live, David Toulis here, the number 800-8949, 800-8949. And You want? All right. You want? Okay. my argument here on local economy. So let me just tell you what in the Republican race we've got Jonathan Mason, conservative Republican, given the nod by David Fowler and some others, fighting for the vote Thursday from Esther Helton. She's a city councilwoman in the nursing field for many years. Also conservative, and yet Jonathan Mason has slapped her around with a flyer, a slick mailer that's come. We've all gotten 20 of them by now, accusing Marty Haynes of having given her a favor in a tax incentive. Why would he do that? Why would you make an argument like that? Slapping the tax assessor. Don't get it.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Assessor of property Marty Haynes denied accusations that he gave special tax break favors to GOP candidate Esther Helton. Jonathan Mason, Helton's